Okay, well, it's been long enough. We have to go back to our anime protagonist, Jeanne d'Arc. Today it's the fourth step of the five-step French Loire campaign of 1429, 522 years ago. This was the Battle of Beaugency. Now, despite the fact that the town is super small and the battle itself wasn't really a big deal, it lasted just about a day before the French negotiated the surrender of the English, stuck within the walls of the town. The reason why it was important is because it held control over this massive bridge, which still exists today, the Bridge of Beaugency. It's important because that would have spearheaded the northern French campaign of the British in their invasion of France, being of course a vital, supply and reinforcement conduit for the offensive of the British, retaken by the French, and in just a day, so that's the spoiler for tomorrow, I'm afraid, they would have the final battle of this campaign. But we will leave that to be discovered in about 24 hours, I guess, more or less. What we have to go over today is the rest of the additions of the PTR build that was released about yesterday from Blizzard. The new build for the 9.1 PTR, which is 39015, which is, as mentioned yesterday, the Mythic Plus focused build. We also have a few other additions to this patch, one of which was centered around the balance tuning. Now, not much of balance tuning has actually happened, but some of it has. Now, starting from Hunter with Kill Command. Kill Command has received a buff for both Beast Mastery and Survival. So both of them have gotten a roughly 15% buff to the multiplier of Kill Command from 0.6 to 0.69. So, slight damage increase. Another change, the last one for the abilities without counting the legendaries, was given to Soul Strike. Now, you might be wondering what the hell is Soul Strike. So do most people. Soul Strike is one of the talents of Demonology. The confusing part is the fact that this talent is basically not really picked anywhere. It's not picked in PvP, it's not picked in raids, it's not picked in Mythic Plus. So the damage multiplier of this ability, which includes the spell power of course, multiplied of base damage of 1. In the new version, the multiplier is going to be 0.575, so it's almost a half of a multiplier change compared to before. I have no idea the in-depth working of this talent because, well, nobody uses it, so it's a pretty weird change, to be honest. Another change, which could be called a nerf, but I'm not too sure. I mean, it's not really going to be used too often to get this benefit, but all of the tanks, as you know, have a bunch of passives, a bunch of stamina buffs and damage taken buffs in their own core effects of the spec. When it comes to Druid, though, their damage reduction, the base 10% damage reduction, which all the other tanks benefit from, except for Vengeance, Demon Hunter. This was the buff that was given to all the tanks except for Vengeance. All the other tanks, of course, are always going to tank in their normal form, in their base form, whereas for Druid, well, you are tanking in bear form, but with this passive you were also gaining a 10% damage reduction when you were outside of bear form, so the effect was always working for a Guardian Druid, whether or not you were in bear form. The new change of 9.1 is that this effect, this damage taken reduction for bears, is only going to work if you stay in bear form. So if you are shapeshifting out of bear form, you are not gaining the 10% damage reduction that you're getting normally. Now, the last few changes, on the other hand, are going to be centered around the new legendaries that are going to be added in 9.1, the ones that are going to be working around your Covenant abilities. One for Discipline is Pallid Command. Pallid Command is the Necrolord legendary. So the change that Blizzard is applying is renaming the ad that is going to be summoned by Unholy Nova. It's going to be renamed from Cackling Chemist to Brooding Cleric. No, that's not the main point of the change. The main point of the change is that if you were playing Discipline, previously the Cackling Chemist was also going to damage the enemies for 40% of your spell power, on top of healing the allies for 40% of your spell power. With this change now, this newly renamed NPC, Brooding Cleric, is only going to heal. So the damage component of this legendary for Discipline is gone. It's just going to be the healing part only, which is still completely irrelevant because nobody's going to be playing with this one. So whatever. The other two changes are a little bit more meaningful. Those are for Shaman. Raging Vesper Vortex was the Kyrian specific legendary. This was considered trash when it was announced because it read, when all of the charges of Vesper Totem are consumed, Vesper Totem will radiate one final burst. People found this dumb because if you're a healer, you were normally going to cast 3 healing spells and not 3 damaging spells. And if you're a DPS, you were going to cast 3 damaging spells and not 3 healing spells. So this legendary requiring you to consume all 6 charges was dumb, because you only normally wanted to consume 3. So Blizzard, of course, says sorry and reacts accordingly. Now this reworked version is going to trigger the final explosion, the final burst of damage or healing after using 3 charges. So it is going to be much easier to use. Even as a healer in Mythic Plus, you can still do damage with this while you continue using healing spells, for example, or vice versa if you're a DPS. So it's definitely better and easier to use. Still unlikely that Shamans as a whole are going to go Kyrian just because of this, but it is certainly better than when it was announced the first time. The other one, which is definitely more interesting because the other change for Shaman is the Seeds of Rampant Growth, which is the Night Fae specific legendary. Now, this is not very exciting because the only spec that is, significantly moving over to play Night Fae is Enhancement, and the legendaries of Enhancement are powerful enough that they are not going to basically be pushed to choose this legendary. This is not really a legendary that synergizes with your kit as much as something very powerful like Doomwinds is for Enhancement, so that is way too crucial for the whole core of Enhancement to be working. And even if you can imagine some different builds for Enhancement, you can think about Witch Doctor's Wolf Bones or even Legacy of the Frost Witch becoming very powerful, so it's very hard that this one, even buffed, will become better. There is always the possibility of Restoration, because Restoration is so good in its base form that they don't even necessarily need any of the current legendaries. Even their Primal Tide Core, which is their Riptide spam for raids, it's good, but it's not that necessary. And for Mythic Plus, it's even less. Mythic Plus, it's gotten to the point where people are going full meme and using Deep Tremor Stone to get the Earthquake on your Earth Elemental to do more damage. So you have more freedom and more room to play something different of a legendary for Restoration, and this one could be interesting because the previous one, Seeds of Rampant Growth, gave you cooldown reduction to Fate Transfusion based on each pulse doing damage of Fate Transfusion. Now it's been changed. Not only are you going to get cooldown reduction for every pulse of Fate Transfusion's damage, you're also going to get critical strike chance increase for 15 seconds by 3% per pulse. Now the pulses of Fate Transfusion are 7, so 7 pulses, that is 21% more crit chance for 15 seconds. Being able to use this at the start of a pretty tough phase for a Restoration Shaman can be pretty strong, because that's a 15 seconds of 20% crit, basically. Not to mention, Restoration Shaman also has massive synergy with crit because of Resurgence, their passive, which is going to give you mana back based on your crits. So it could be pretty interesting given the freedom that Restoration has in choosing its legendary. Now that we are done with the very minor balance changes that were announced, let's go over something else. This image, I might be a boomer, I might be a traditionalist, a conservative, but I find this picture very depressing. I find it very defeating. Seeing an orange color item, a legendary item, something you learned being very special since all the way back to like 2004, seeing this with the Raid Finder tag under it is just very, very sad. What I am mentioning in this picture is the fact that the legendary bow for Sylvanas, the last boss of Sanctum of Domination, will drop a legendary bow. It's going to be available in all 4 difficulties, in all 4 different item levels, increasing at 13 rates. So 220 item level in LFR, 233 in normal, 246 in heroic, and then 259 in Mythic. Remember, in case you have forgotten, that the last 2 bosses, just like Castonatria, the last 2 bosses of Sanctum of Domination will have a higher item level on their items, including this legendary. We do have, though, a special addition on top of this, because we have gotten the data mining of 2 items, the Wraith Wisp Sinew and the Ethereal Fletching. The Ethereal Fletching and the Sinew are basically going to allow you to increase the item level of your legendary. One of them is going to allow you to increase the item level of your legendary up to item level 246, which is heroic, and then the last one, the one from Mythic, is going to allow you to increase it all the way up to 259. So this seems like basically a way to prevent people from looting multiple legendary bows, right? We already established it's very sad to loot an LFR legendary. It would be even sadder to have to replace your LFR legendary to the normal legendary, and then the heroic legendary, and then the mythic legendary. So to prevent this, Blizzard is coming up with a system of basically tokens that you can loot from Sylvanas and use those to upgrade your bow without having to loot multiples of them. Absolutely no idea on the rarity of these items. Maybe it's still gonna be very rare as the bow, although the first returns on this inquiry is telling us that the rarity of this legendary is going to be just like a normal item, so it's not going to be a super special item that you might never even see. It looks like it's going to be just a normal chance to drop from hunters. Maybe this item is going to be guaranteed. Maybe as soon as you loot, the normal one, all you have to do is kill it in heroic to guarantee it for your hunter, and then in mythic as well. We don't actually know. We don't have the confirmation yet. It might be kind of annoying, you have to say, depending on the strength of the effect, depending on how powerful Wailing Arrow is going to be. This might be pretty annoying, because basically you would give hunters a guaranteed way of getting a mythic quality weapon from the last 2 bosses, which means higher item level. There are people right now who have been clearing the Nartheus for like 10 weeks in a row who still don't have their mythic weapon yet. And this system, if it works like it could, which is the guaranteed upgrades from the tokens, it could give hunters a very fast way, a very efficient way of getting a high quality weapon, which also has normal stats, normal secondary stats, and a special effect, which is likely going to make it even stronger. So, I don't know. It might be pretty weird in terms of power compared to other specs, this bow. I just hope Blizzard doesn't fuck it up completely. Now, another thing worth touching on is the fact that, yes, you're going to get the recolor of the current Keystone Master mount for acquiring Keystone Master in Season 1. This was already known. It's not uncommon. In fact, it's the norm for Blizzard to pull out some recolors for the following achievements for the following seasons in the same expansion. So this is the mount you're going to be getting for getting to 2000 rating in Mythic Plus Blizzard's scoring system of Season 1, the equivalent of completing all keys at plus 15, so the current Keystone Master you can get in-game. The addition is the fact that there's going to be a title. That's not exactly what I wanted when I hoped Blizzard would have added more trophies, more rewards, and more achievements and accomplishments in Mythic Plus, because this title is going to be a title that you can obtain for 1500 rating in Mythic Plus. So 1500 rating in Mythic Plus is the equivalent of completing all dungeons at plus 10 right now. I don't think you need a title for getting all dungeons to plus 10, especially after the first season, where it's going to be even easier eventually to clear plus 10s. What's also even more confusing is that you are starting to set up a precedent. There is an achievement now for plus 10s, the equivalent of plus 10s, 1500 rating. But there is no achievements for plus 20s, for example, or plus 25s. So you're leaving open the achievement, the reward, for dealing with the plus 10 level, but not really anything higher than plus 15. Yes, we know Blizzard has added the teleports. Completing a plus 20 in time in 9.1 will give you a teleport to the dungeon, which is an okay reward, yes. I don't think it's at the same level of a title or at the same level of a mount. I don't know what you think about this. If you would rather have a teleport, which is only going to last you and only going to be useful most of the time for just one tier, maybe at best one expansion, or if you would rather have a title or a mount, maybe even a special transmog set, similar to challenge modes. Which is why I am okay for Blizzard to add a title to completing plus 10s in time. In 9.1, it will be 1500 rating total, but if that exists, I would have also rather had additional rewards. So a title for 1500 rating, okay, but then a title for 2000 rating, but then also a title for, 2000 rating or 3000 rating and similar, not just stop at 1500, so plus 10 level. That's kind of disappointing, I feel. So in closing this video, we have to reiterate again that with this latest PTR build 39015, we still don't have the release date. We have now gone 4 extra PTR builds since the first time I posed this question. When exactly was the game going to be released for 9.1? Because back when I was posing this question the first time, we still had no idea of the Mythic Plus affix. We still had seen basically nothing from the Mega Dungeon Tazavesh. There was basically no testing done yet. We also did not even go through fully all of the bosses, all of the testing for the raid bosses in Sanctum of Domination. So it was a little bit hard to imagine a close release. It's been weeks since then. We have now gotten the Tormented affix, we have now gotten the mini-bosses, we have gotten this latest patch which has further tuned them and polished them even more. More balance has continued for the anima powers of the seasonal affix, as well as the continuous balance tuning of the classes and specs. The boss testing is basically over. All of the bosses have basically been tested in normal and then heroic, and then most of them in mythic as well, so very little is left on that angle. And then Blizzard has even started publishing, official posts about the new features of 9.1. So it is bound to be very close at this point. I'm not gonna go further than a month. That would be my latest. The mid of July. I would be closer to like 2 weeks from now. Early July would be my normal guess if I have to give one. But for now, we have to stop here. We have to stop. I think that's enough. This was all that was basically in this latest PTR build. Thank you guys for watching the video, supporting the channel and whatnot. If you want, you can subscribe, like, comment, follow, and whatever other things you can do. If you don't want to do any of this, then, I don't know, buy me a new AC system, because it's fucking torrid in here, goddamn. See you guys soon, probably tomorrow, and in the meantime, the believers were hoping on the 29th of June of a release. I think the copium is starting to get at their heads.